আচ্ছা, this is, I think we are about to go live. TIC স্যার জয়েন করলেই আমরা পৌঁছে যাব।
স্টার্ট করুন।
একটু ওয়েট করো, TIC স্যার জয়েন করুক।
দেবাশিস দা ইজ হিয়ার।
দেবাশিস দা শুনতে পাচ্ছ?
হ্যাঁ, আমি শুনতে পাচ্ছি। আমার কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছ?
হ্যাঁ, ক্লিয়ার।
হ্যালো।
ছন্দম স্যারও জয়েন করেছেন। ছন্দম স্যার আমাদের টিচার ইনচার্জ ডক্টর দেবাশিস দাস।
নমস্কার।
নমস্কার, গুড আফটারনুন।
গুড আফটারনুন।
আচ্ছা, ছন্দম স্যার আপনার ক্যামেরাটা ডিসকানেক্টেড দেখাচ্ছে।
তাই?
হ্যাঁ, ক্যামেরাটা ডিসকানেক্ট।
কারণ
স্যার আপনি একবার লিভ করে আরেকবার জয়েন করুন, তাহলে জয়েন করার আগে তখন দেখবেন অ্যালাউ ক্যামেরা আর মাইক অ্যাক্সেস দেখাবে, ওই জায়গাটা একটু দেখে নিন। Yeah, Shonjib, I think we can begin now. I think we have everyone here. So yeah, let's begin.
Okay. Thank you, Orpita. So, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Department of English, Ramananda Centenary College, I cordially welcome all my departmental faculties, Orpita Ghosh, Assistant Professor in English, and Hriday Roy, SSCT teacher, and our teacher in charge, Dr. Devasis Das, and our guest speaker of today's lecture, uh, Professor Chhandam Deb, a premium academician from the Department of English, uh, Jagannath Kishore College, Purulia, and obviously all the interested audience. This lecture is a joint venture by the Department of English and Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Ramananda Centenary College. Dr. Dev today will deliver his talk on Sophocles' Oedipus, which is a classical Greek tragedy. This lecture is primarily organized for the students of CBCS program who are eager to widen their critical understanding on Greek tragedy, particularly our Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. So, without lingering anymore, I would request our respected Sir Dr. Devasis Das to inaugurate this program officially. Dr. Devasis Das, over to you.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants and partakers. It is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of the Ramananda Centenary College. I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Chhandam Deb, Associate Professor in English, J.K. College, and Dr. Saurabh Kumar Nag, Assistant Professor in English, Ondathana Mahavidyalaya, for accepting our invitation and delivers lecture on Oedipus Rex today and Obhigyan Shakuntalam on 9th March. And also, I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to my colleagues Sanjeev Kaur and Orpita Ghosh, who are also the IPC coordinator, for organizing this type of lecture series. Again, on behalf of my institution, I am compelled to all the students of our college and all the participants. Dear colleagues and students, we all understand the importance of this type of virtual webinar in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic situation in our day-to-day life. So, I will not take any more time for this webinar. I wish you all a very successful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Devasis Das, Dr. Devasis Das, our teacher in charge of our college. Now I would request my colleague Orpita Ghosh to introduce our sir, Dr. Chhandam Deb.
Thank you, Shonjib. Thank you also to Dr. Devashish Das for his encouraging words. It is indeed a privilege and honor for me to welcome Dr. Chhandam Deb, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of English, J.K. College, Purulia, for kindly agreeing to deliver this lecture today. Dr. Chhandam Deb has been teaching English literature for the past 33 years, and he has been formerly coordinator of the IGNU Study Center at J.K. College. He's also the president and director of Udatto, a registered cultural society and theatre group. Dr. Deb has acted as a resource person and speaker at several international and national seminars and conferences, and has published widely across international and national journals in both English and Bengali languages. His areas of interest include drama and poetry, as well as he's very actively involved in theatre. On behalf of the department, sir, I would now like to invite you to take over the virtual mic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Urpita. Thank you, Shomjib. And thank you, our honorable teacher in charge, Devashish Babu. Since this is a live lecture, live streaming, so in majority, I will talk in English. Am I clearly audible? Am I clearly audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Am I clearly audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Since this is a live streaming, and uh, maybe there is a high possibility that listeners, audience, members of the audience from several parts of the country might be seeing this. So I would deliver my lecture in English alone. But if at the end of the lecture, participants express any wish to become bilingual, I may do that for a few minutes or so. But don't bother. I say this to my student participants. I'll be talking in an absolutely understandable, comprehensible, and lucid English, as far as I know and as far as I can. So our subject today is Oedipus Rex or Oedipus Rex. Don't bother about the pronunciation. In English, it is very commonly pronounced as Oedipus, and that is the anglicized pronunciation. The original Greek pronunciation being Oedipus, Rex King, you know. I take it for granted that my listeners who are undergraduate students, uh, uh, of course, of Ramananda Centenary College and others as well, um, they know the fundamental, basic story of uh, Oedipus Rex and the myth behind it. I would today try to locate Oedipus Rex. It is a very difficult task to cover a play like Oedipus Rex in a lecture of 1 hour, and no general coverage, so to say, is possible in such a short time. But keeping in mind both the ensuing examinations as well as mm, the endurance or tolerance limit of my student listeners, uh, I'll try to be as brief as possible. Um, I will try to locate Oedipus Rex as first as a classical play and a classical Greek tragedy, uh, popularly known as tragedies of fate. Um, I will also try to uh, locate the play in terms of a tragedy of fate. Now, if we look at the structure of the tragedy, we would see that Oedipus Rex is a play where, like other classical Greek tragedies, uh, fate plays a very big role, and mm, well, the myth on which the play is built up uh, obviously begins with something called foretelling or a prophecy, and which was in those times in Greece uh, and even the earlier cultures, it was considered as the prophecy of fate. But the prophecy of fate came to the Greeks. And in this case, uh, if I talk of Athens or Thebes, to the people, it came through the chief priest of the state or somebody from the royal family. But they didn't happen to know the prophecy themselves. They had to go to a place which was known as oracle. Mm, there are places still known as oracle or oracles. So in this case, it was the Delphic oracle. Delphi is a place name. So the oracle situated in Delphi, known as the Delphic oracle, uh, and in the Delphic oracle also, uh, when we say oracle or oracles coming from the gods, in Bengali we call them doibobani, bani or words or prophecies coming from the Debs or the gods, not my surname Deb, in the sense of God. Uh, so these oracles operated through the oracular priests. They were very powerful. They were supposed to be very powerful. And they always talked in riddlesome words. I will not go in detail on that. Uh, just a minute, I'm facing a problem. Just a minute. Yeah, I resume. Sorry for the very brief break. Uh, so now, if we place fate at the center of the play, it begins with a prophecy. If we go to the myth, now this is for the benefit of the students that I want to make it clear that you all possibly know that these plays were mostly, and Oedipus Rex is obviously and indeed based on a myth which was more or less known to the Athenian audience, the Theban audience, or the Greek audience as a whole. The basic myth was known to them. They came to the theater for two purposes. Uh, uh, well, one purpose was that these plays were performed during the Dionysian festival, or according to some, the adjective, the qualifier is Dionysiac, whatever, the Dionysian festival. And chiefly, there were two Dionysian festivals, the autumn festival and the spring festival, and chiefly in the spring festival. So there was a large a religious dimension behind these festivals where many things happened, but the two chief things that took place were worshipping God Dionysius. Dionysius, the god of vegetation, the god of wine, uh, god of love, etc., etc. And it was being a spring festival like our Nobanno in Bengali. It was also a Yeah, I think I'm both visible and audible.
Yes, sir, you are. Please
Mm.
continue.
Yeah, my internet connection suddenly went off, so there was an undesired break. Sorry for that. Okay, so the point that I was saying, making, is that you see that if we go to the myth which was mostly known amongst the audience, the myth begins with a foretelling. The foretelling that Oedipus, Laius, Oedipus's father, and Jocasta, his mother, and later wife, uh, Laius and Jocasta would have a child. This child who will be, sorry, uh, who will be a killer of his own father, a patricide or parricide, and he would also pollute his own mother's bed. So it begins with a prophecy. So that is one agency, that is prophecy, and uh, prophecy, first of all, becoming a hearsay, a rumor, then becoming a reality. The other agent through which this fate operates is called hamartia by Aristotle. Hamartia, or tragic flaw, folly, foible, weakness, error of judgment on the part of the tragic hero, the central character, Oedipus Rex. And Aristotle talks of hubris in Oedipus Rex as the hamartia. So Oedipus's hamartia was hubris or pride. Uh, the third agency working in the play are the other characters, amongst whom we may talk of, first of all, Tiresias, the blind seer, um, the blind prophet, the messenger from Corinth, and the shepherd, the old shepherd, who is at last brought onto the stage, to the palace, and, well, faces the wrath, anger of Oedipus. Um, so these three agencies become operative in uh, in the realization or materialization of what we call, quote unquote, fate, which was first delivered in the form of the Delphic oracle. Okay, now if we very briefly survey the structure of Oedipus Rex, we would find that Oedipus Rex has a dithyrambic structure in itself. Dithyramb or dithyramb, whatever, dithyramb, which was a stage of performance before the tragedies came, where uh, there was a goat at the center, and many people went on dancing and singing rhythmically uh, round the goat, and finally that circular movement was there, and the circle became narrower and narrower and it finally narrowed down on the goat, which was killed, and the goat was known as the sacrificial goat, which again came from very old ethnic practices of king killing. But we don't know the practice of king killing. I would like to suggest a book to my student learners, which they don't have time now to read, but in future they can delve through the book. Uh, Sir James Fraser's The Golden Bough, where Fraser went on several field studies, innumerable field studies, and some of which concentrated on this practice, the very old ethnic practice of king killing. As soon as the king grew old, uh, the people there killed the king, but it was not a surreptitious killing, secret or secretive killing. It was a public killing, because they thought that the king becoming old and the king stopping producing children meant that the king has now become infertile or sterile, and they connected the infertility or sterility of the king. uh, the concept of king actually was not there. They were known as chieftains, from which the English word captain comes. Well, now, this king killing was a social exercise practice, and it was a very serious event, but at the same time, an event of celebration. Why? Because by killing the king, by killing the king, they believed they were killing the sterility of the land. They connected the fertility of the ruler with the fertility of the land. And with the blood of the dead king, the killed king, they would coronate, they would, আমরা যাকে বাংলায় অভিষেক বলি, রাজ্যাভিষেক, they would coronate the new king, who was a young and obviously fertile young man. So the structure is somebody at the center. That king killing was done in the same manner, and we don't know how this practice was shifted to, transferred to, or transported to Greece. There is no definite history of that, but many speculations are there. I'm not going into that. That would divert from the central issue. So that would be a diversion from the central issue. So now the structure is the goat to be sacrificed, sacrificial goat, was at the center, surrounded by many attacking or armed people. And later on, when dithyrambic practice came to Greece, it was first practiced by situating or keeping a goat at the center of the circular structure. Surrounding the goat, the men went on, and it was a celebration. So they thought, the Greek people, before the tragedies came, they thought that all the blemishes, all the sins of the society was offered or transferred or conferred upon the goat, and the goat became the sacrificial goat, by sacrificing which they could appease God Dionysius. Because in these festivals, the primary aim of these festivals was uh, to seek for, primarily to celebrate good crops. And if there was not a good crop, uh, they would consider it, the Greek people would consider it as the wrath of Dionysius, the anger of Dionysius. So they sought to appease Dionysius and pray for a good crop next year or in the next season. Even if it was a good crop, they would pray for good crops the next season, obviously. So you can understand that it was fundamentally connected with an agrarian culture and an agricultural fertility setup. Now coming to the play Oedipus Rex, think Oedipus as the sacrificial goat. And that was the concept, that the tragic hero is a sacrificial goat. Uh, he is surrounded by many people, first by Tiresias, then by other people, uh, who act in a manner or tell of those things which go against him. And there is a change of air, there is a change of weather in the both in the climate of Thebes and in the fatal climate of Oedipus. So you have uh, an individual surrounded by either many enemies or many opposing forces. Well, uh, we have also the 5 stages of action, which you obviously know: exposition, uh, development or rising action, climax, falling action, and finally denouement. And in tragedy, this denouement is there both in tragedy and in comedy. In tragedy, the denouement is known as catastrophe, uh, where Aristotle observes a kind of catharsis uh, really took place. However, I'm not going much in detail into that. The next point I would try to make is that the three unities are uh, almost perfectly, why almost, absolutely perfectly maintained in this play, Oedipus Rex. And that is the reason why Aristotle calls it an exemplary classical Greek tragedy of fate. The unity of time, the time covered during the play Oedipus Rex, is a day. The play begins in the morning, and you'd be very, very, I mean, happy to know, or maybe enlightened to know, I mean, my students, that actually in the Athenian Greece, in the arena theater, uh, the plays actually started in the morning, and the sun across the sea directly falling on to the arena. Uh, so, um, and the turn of events, the series of incidents go on happening throughout the day. And by the time the play comes to an end, it is almost the end of the day. Although practically in the the Dionysian festivals, 3 plays were performed during the day, and that's why there was a common and popular tradition or practice of writing 3 plays in a chain, one sequel to the other, which was known as a trilogy. So this Oedipus Rex also is a part of a trilogy which is known as the Theban trilogy or the Theban plays. Oedipus Rex, Antigone, and Oedipus Rex. If we look at the publication dates or performance dates, Antigone comes first. But if we look at the series of events, the temporal order, timeline of the events, then Oedipus Rex followed by Oedipus at Colonus, because after his banishment from Thebes, he moves to Colonus. and Antigone and Ismene, his two daughters, they accompany Oedipus. Oedipus dies at Colonus. Antigone comes back once again to Thebes, and the play Antigone begins. However, mm, so you have all the three unities. So time plane is within 24 hours or 1 day. There is uh, a very difficult and unresolved debate, uh, disagreement on the point. Aristotle only says one single day. By day, whether he refers to 24 hours or the duration from sunrise to sunset, is never made clear in his text. But from all other supporting proofs or evidences, we can very easily infer that plays in those days and much, much later, even in Elizabethan England, plays were performed during daytime, not evening or night. And therefore, Aristotle obviously meant from sunrise to sunset. So that is about unity of time. Unity of place, the place should not change. The entire play Oedipus Rex takes place before the royal house, the royal palace of Thebes, the Theban palace. Uh, Regarding action, Aristotle says the action must be unified, by which he means it should have an organic unity, that is a singular theme, serious in nature, must be at the center, and that should be the only theme or story in the play. It should not be mixed up with the comedy or comic elements, which Aristotle considered to be inferior, and there must not be any subplot or a second plot, as we very often find in Elizabethan plays. Shakespeare is a big example. So that is also maintained. Time, place, action. All these are absolutely and purely maintained in this play. Look at the chorus. Uh, the chorus goes on telling about the past. Oedipus's father, Laius, and so on, Polydacus, and the entire Cadmus dynasty, Cadmus, Cadmus, or the Greeks pronounced it Cadmus, the Cadmus dynasty, from which King Oedipus hailed. Well, so the chorus perfectly plays its threefold function, especially its thematic function of telling the past. Once and again, the chorus talks about what Thebes had been like in earlier days, what Laius did, and how Thebes was like in the past, and Oedipus's forefathers, etc., etc. So, telling or relating the past. The chorus, you would notice, also goes on commenting on the present, what is happening now. And they go on trying to advise Oedipus, to make him aware of certain things, to make him aware of his past, to make him aware. Now we come to the next point, also of a dangerous future, maybe imminent future. So the chorus also tells about uh, the future, or they anticipate the future. And this process is marvelously, uh, marvelously structured or constructed in a manner where nature and human activity mingle with each other. So the chorus says, there is dark cloud in the skies of Thebes. There is imminent danger, and we can see a future where shipwrecks may occur, towers may fall, etc., etc. Uh, so, anticipating a dark future, a bleak future, an uncertain future. So, by doing this, the chorus magically connects the past, the present, and the future. And that was what Greek tragedy was all about, connecting the past and the future through the present, which later on we are used to call continuum, NWM, continuum of time. So the present hangs like a pendulum between the past and the future. Human existence is no existence without the past. Human existence is no existence without the future. Whether the future is bright or, bleak, doesn't matter. But in our mental map, in our mind, in our spiritual perception, we have the picture of the future. And the past is always there, obviously, because without the past, the present would not have been here. What is present now was the past a few years ago, or a few months ago, or a few ages ago, or a few minutes ago, few seconds ago, few moments ago. Uh, so the chorus continues or continually connects the past, present, and the future. And in this, as the play proceeds, Oedipus moves from a glorious youth, a glorious kingship, the noonday of his glory, to doubts and misgivings. So that is, as called by Aristotle, peripeteia, or reversal. Somehow he feels that the wind is changing. Things are beginning to move against him. Uh, and well, I'll talk about that later on, a little bit later. Well, and finally, when the truth is out, that becomes, you all know, a discovery for Oedipus, which is known as anagnosis in Greek, recognition or discovery in English. Uh, and regarding catharsis, I don't have to speak much, you know, and if you ever happen to see the play on stage, uh, I don't think, uh, I think there are few people who would be able to resist the pain in his or her chest and resist his or her tears. So that is catharsis. I'm not elaborating on the concept of catharsis because that is a separate chapter altogether. So you have, once again, a threefold movement in the tragic hero's career, life. Oedipus is prosperous when the play begins. Where does it end? When the play ends, Oedipus is self-blinded, bleeding from the eyes, walking with a stick, bowed down, stooping, getting banished from Thebes, and walks out of Thebes in the dusk, in the twilight. He moves farther and farther away from Thebes. So from prosperity to misery. Aristotle, uh, Oedipus happened to kill his father. You know the story, so I'm not going for that. Uh, Killed his father, not knowing who this old bearded man was, and the background of the reason of this old man's high temper. But he had an altercation with the old man and the cab driver. He took out his sword because the cab was not releasing him or letting him to releasing his path or letting him take over. He takes over. He takes over at a crossing of three roads, where he takes over, has a quarrel, an altercation with the old man and the cabman. Oedipus takes out his sword. The king, we don't know whether he took out his sword or not. I mean, the old man. And Oedipus kills the old man, and the cabman flees away. He escapes, not knowing that he killed his own father. Comes to Thebes. Before entering the city of Thebes, on the big high portal, the great royal gate of Thebes, who is sitting Sphinx. You know the story. Sphinx asks everybody a question which nobody can answer, and Sphinx kills him. The question is also known to you, which is the creature which walks on four legs in the morning, on two legs in the noon, and on three legs in the evening. Oedipus answers, man, because a baby, a child, crawls on four legs. His or her two hands function like legs, crawling, Hamaguri jake amra Banglaয় boli. So crawls on four legs, stands on two legs, most powerful. Yes, that was part of the Sphinx's question also. Uh, four legs, two legs, and three legs. But he is the strongest. It is the strongest. The creature is the strongest when it walks on two legs, not when he walks on three legs or four legs. So Oedipus gives the answer, man, his youth, mature youth, which later on in romantic poetry, in English romantic poetry, Byron has a poem called All for Love. There he says, the days of our youth are the days of our glory. Orpita, I just ask you, I have 5 minutes left. Hello?
Sir,
Or
please
Sanjeev?
continue as you see fit.
No problem if I go for 10-15 minutes.
Sure, sir, sure. Not a problem.
Okay.
Please go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. So now, what happens then? Then Well, Oedipus gives the answer, man. Becomes a celebrity. Nowadays, the word celebrity is known to everybody. Whether somebody knows English or not, celebrity or celeb is a term known to everybody. Um, so he becomes a celebrity, celebrated in Thebes. By the time the news reaches Thebes that the king is killed by some bandits or dacoits on the road, Thebes is, well, Thebes' throne is now empty. So the Theban people unanimously agree, who else, who other than Oedipus, who has already proved himself to be the savior of Thebes, can become the king. He becomes the king. The queen falls in love with the young king and they marry. And then they have 4 children: Eteocles, Polynicus, 2 sons, Antigone, Ismene, 2 daughters. Uh, so, well, this is when the play comes to the end. Now Oedipus is an experienced man. Now he knows what life is. Now he realizes the truth in Tiresias's words. Now he realizes the truth of what? Truth of the, well, prediction, the foretelling done even before his birth. And later on also told in other terms to Creon by the Delphic oracle. From innocence, he was all innocent. He didn't know whom he was killing and whom he was marrying, that they happened to be his parents. From innocence to experience. And an innocence which was, in fact, an ignorance. So he moves from ignorance to knowledge, but a knowledge which is a very costly knowledge, a knowledge which is gathered too late, belated knowledge. Yet it is knowledge, and it does not pay him, because by that time he has both sinned and punished for sinning. Then what is the purpose of this play? Not only this play, but the purpose, one of the central purposes of all these plays, as I told you, that the Dionysian festival was a highly religiously flavored celebration of Dionysius, his worship, and filled with moral, ethical, psychological dimensions. So the purpose of these festivals, and the plays in these festivals, drama competitions were there, and you would be surprised to know that Sophocles, the writer of this play, won first prize. He became the winner of this drama competition 18 times. However, so one of the big purposes was to make the audience aware. So the tragic hero and the story of tragedy recast in the form of the story of the myth, recast in the form of a drama, a play, a theatrical performance, was actually, meant to become an example, an exemplary visual and exemplary audiovisual presentation before 6,000 to 17,000. That was the range of audiences. But how they could hear and see, I have no scope here to discuss on that. Maybe on some other occasion I can do that, try to do that. Well, so from ignorance to knowledge, but a knowledge which was belated knowledge. So now you see Oedipus's entire story, both in the myth and in the play, connects to his childhood in which he was supposed to be killed, because Laius and Jocasta took the decision of killing the child, but they could not kill the child themselves, because after all they were parents. How can a father and mother kill their own child? So they transferred the onus, the responsibility of killing the child, to a shepherd who was also not that stone hearted. He could not kill the child. He then gave it to his shepherd friend in the neighboring state of Corinth. Say Corinthian king, that Corinthian king, Polybus, and the queen Merope brought up Oedipus. And Oedipus, from his very childhood, knew Polybus and Merope to be his parents. When someday he heard the hearsay, he heard the whisperings, he heard the rumor that people are pointing at him that he is a cursed child and he may someday kill his father and marry his own mother and produce children on her lap. He shut his ears, took instant decision, and late in the night he took his horse and moved where he didn't know. But ultimately he comes to Thebes in the morning. And then the story of Sphinx, his entry, his becoming the king, his marrying the queen, producing children, ruling for long years. But the past didn't leave him. He might have left his past, but the past did not leave him. And past leaves nobody, no human being in the world. It will pursue you. It will chase you. The past chased Oedipus till his old days. So you see, childhood referring to the segment of the past. Well, his kingship, glorious kingship. Where does the play begin? The Theban people come with supplication, O king, you are the savior of this great state, Thebes. Long ago you saved our state from the fatal clutches of the Sphinx. Now we once again pray to you to save our state, because we have heard that some perilous plague infects Thebes. And Oedipus says, I will do that. Remember, I am King Oedipus. Look at his glory, and at the same time, never forget to mark his pride, hubris, hamartia, which will later on pay him back in a very bad way. So he's present, glorious present, known, past, then you see, past, childhood, crawling, walking on four legs. Connect all of them. Noonday, glorious and mature youth, glorious kingship, power, glory, appreciation, respect, everything that a man can have. Noonday, walking on two legs, most powerful. Look at the end of the play. An emaciated Oedipus, a blinded Oedipus, a bleeding Oedipus, walking with a stick on three legs. That was his destined future. And when he moves to Colonus in the next play, in the chronological order, Sophocles wrote that as the last play. Well, Oedipus at Colonus. When he moves to Colonus, he can't see Colonus because he's already blind. But his blinding is not merely blindness. It is the blinding of the external eye, the eyes with which he could not see the truth. And when does he blind himself? From picking up brochures from the queen's belt, well, the queen's girdle, and drives them straight into his eyes. When he feels that his eyes are of no use, or rather, not to say, himself says, I have used my eyes in a wrong way. I have seen things which a man should never see in his life. Hell with my vision, hell with my eyes, hell with my sight. But as soon as it does this, his inner eye opens up. That is the eye of knowledge, eye of realization. The candle, the light of knowledge is lit up. That is the mental, the spiritual, the psychological, the perceptive eye. Metaphorically, which we call the third eye, trinoyon. Who has a trinoyon, third eye? Lord Shiva. Who is a parallel to Lord Shiva and Ma Durga also, Parvati. However, now Shiva, who is a parallel to God Dionysius, that is a separate chapter, can be discussed later on. So, opening of the third eye, the inner eye. And now come to Tiresias, who is blind. And Tiresias has a very complicated history. He had the lives of both a man and a woman. First a man, then a woman, then a man. There are two myths regarding this, which can be later discussed, or you can just come to know, or you have already come to know, I think, from your teachers. So Tiresias, who had the experience of both a male and a female existence. But Tiresias, the old man, comes to the royal palace holding the hand of a boy. His one hand occupied with the stick with which he walks, and the other hand is held by a boy. The boy representing the younger generation, the new generation. And Tiresias, the old hag, in the heat of anger, Oedipus calls him the old hag. And Tiresias's pain is no less than the pain of the tragic hero Oedipus, because he knows the truth. but he has to bear the tremendous pain because he cannot tell the truth. And that's why, on the first occasion, Tiresias says, I don't know anything, leave me. Had I known that these questions would be asked, I wouldn't have come. Leave me, take me home. But Oedipus goes on screwing him, goading him, tempting him, instigating him. And Tiresias says, you are the killer of lives. Obviously, that is taken by Oedipus as an abuse. He couldn't believe that that could, by the farthest possibility, become the truth, or it had already become the truth. However, so you have this blindness motive also, and therefore, to conclude, with which I should conclude, that the play has a tremendously powerful tripartite structure: past, present, future, childhood, youth, oldness, so on and so forth, morning, day, evening, or twilight, etc., etc. And finally, you have an Oedipus walking out of Thebes with, on three legs, two legs and a stick. Uh, so, three junctures of time, three phases of age, three roads meeting where Oedipus overtook Laius' cab, killed him. Uh, so one road going back to Corinth, one to Thebes, and the other to Delphic Oracle, Delphi, three roads. The place is named Phocis, Phocis. However, and finally, three legs to walk, and the three sections of the Sphinx's riddle: three legs, four legs, two legs, three legs. Connect all of them, and you will discover. I tell my student learners, you will discover the magic that Sophocles created by, well, connecting all the threads together in a marvelously powerful, integrated, and organic whole. And possibly it was at the center of Greek teaching that don't go beyond your bounds, don't cross the borders. Tragedy, therefore, has been termed as, quote unquote, crossing the borders by later critics, which you would find also in Marlowe and to a large extent in Shakespeare, obviously. So, crossing the borders. Don't cross the borders. If you cross the borders, what will happen to you? Look at the stage. Look at Oedipus. Here is the example. The great, powerful, intelligent, and people, well, called him a man with divine powers. Nobody could answer Sphinx, but he could. Such a man, look at his destiny. Because he dared to cross the borders. How he crossed the borders, I don't have time to discuss. And I hope you all know that by this time. So, fate working through several agents, and one of them is Hematia, hubris. Hubris or pride that makes man what? Spiritually blind. Pride makes you blind. And now you can yourselves connect and relate the blindness motive in the play. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for such a lucid elaboration on Sophocles' Oedipus. I'm really stunned by your expertise and your frank, candid delivery. And I hope that all my students and the other scholars, academicians who are here as audience are enriched by your talk today. Um, Now, Orpita, see if Hriday is present here. You may ask him to.
We have a couple of questions from students. Sir, would you like to take them?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Uh, did Oedipus marry anyone but Jocasta? We don't have any such proof in the either in the myth or in the play. Yeah, this is a fantastic question. Who is Asalata Kormokar? uh, I congratulate you, Ashalata, for your question. This is a fantastic question. Believe me, Ashalata, that I have been asking since the days of my days of my college and university. Could Oedipus escape his doom at all if he had been more careful? Yeah. Uh, if we say yes, then what comes out? That it was due to Oedipus's hamartia, hubris, pride that he made this disastrous end. Had he been more careful, he could have avoided. But on the other hand, if we say yes, Oedipus could have avoided this, then where does your fate go? Where does your fate go? Uh, this is a question, Ashalota, and for everybody. Uh, I name you several times because you raised the question. This is a question which still remains unresolved in the history of the analysis of Greek theatre and Oedipus. There is no clear answer to it. Uh, if we believe that fate is there, as the Greeks did, and fate has a way of expression, a kind of logos of expression, a language of expression, which is oracle. The oracular speeches might, it might be Delphic oracle or any other oracle. Then it cannot be changed. Whether you are proud or not doesn't matter. It will happen. What will happen will happen. But what possibly the Greek masters of theatre tried to do is that uh, even if there are certain forebodings, predictions in uh, life, because they believed in oracular predictions, if that be so, even then, maybe man could or might avoid some of the ditches and potholes of his career, of his life, if he is careful enough not to become proud, not to suffer from hubris, if he is careful enough to avoid, well, avoid crossing the borders, as I told you. So we are not sure. It is not a tragedy by fate, Onish. It is a tragedy of fate. It is not a tragedy by fate alone. I mean, can I talk for just for a minute in Bengali? Sanjeev? Hello. I can't hear you.
Hello. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can continue in Bengali too.
No, no, not continue. I mean, just দেখো বাংলায় একটা বলে
Yeah,
না,
yeah. You can take 2 or 3.
ইয়া
Yeah, yeah.
বাংলায় বলে যে যে শুইয়া থাকে তাহার ভাগ্য শুইয়া থাকে. What is the meaning of that? And you have ample examples of this in our Indian classical literature and chiefly religious literature. And in the epics. এ তো গীতাতেই বলেছে যে ভাগ্য তো আছে, কিন্তু কর্মযোগে থাকতে হবে। তুমি যদি বলো ভাগ্যে যা আছে তাই হবে বলে শুয়ে থাকো, যে শুইয়া থাকে তার ভাগ্য শুইয়া থাকে। তার মানে কোথাও একটা, অনিশ, ইটস অ্যান আনসার টু ইয়োর কোয়েশ্চেন, কোথাও একটা পুরুষকারকে, human capability has been recognized, given value, valued, it has been valued. So you maybe, if we totally believe in fate, maybe we cannot change our fate, but we can well divert its way, or can well avoid some of the ditches or potholes in our life. এইটা একটা এমন এইটা বলা খুব মুশকিল। এটা তুমি যে প্রশ্নটা করেছো মলয় লায়েক, এইটা বলা খুব মুশকিল, কারণ মিথ তো, ওটা মিথে বোঝা খুব মুশকিল। মানে যিনি লিখেছিলেন তাকে দিয়ে কিন্তু টাইম লাইনটা বোঝা নাও যেতে পারে, কারণ মিথগুলোকে নিয়ে অনেকে কাজ করেছেন। তুমি তো পেন্থিউসের কথা বলেছো, ওভিড কাজ করেছেন, গ্রিক ট্র্যাজেডিয়ানরা তো কাজ করেইছেন, আর অনেকে কাজ করেছেন। তো মিথটা নিয়ে ধরো ওভিড ফার্স্ট সেঞ্চুরিতে কাজ করছেন, তার মানে কিন্তু মিথটা ফার্স্ট সেঞ্চুরি না। আবার সোফোক্লিস 4th সেঞ্চুরি বিসিতে কাজ করছেন, তার মানে কিন্তু মিথটা 4th সেঞ্চুরি বিসির নয়। সো it's very difficult to well underline or underpin a particular timeline. And I have an advice to you. That is, don't try to consider or judge or ascertain a myth in practical and material terms. Myth is not to be taken on the face value of the story. Now you may raise the question, was there a king called Oedipus? Did he really marry his mother, kill his father? So there are no answers to it, definite answers. Because a myth is a thing. Why do we why do we give or extend so much importance on the myths? Because the myths are to be understood. Once more the question, Please pop it up. Why Jocasta is not a tragic heroine like Oedipus, tragic hero, only as she doesn't want to know the truth of Oedipus's origin, or for something else, sir. Yeah, I'm coming to that, Aparna, just after this sentence. সুতরাং মিথটাকে সবসময় দেখতে হবে at the level of codification. Myth is a codified truth. You have to decode it, and you have to discover the intention of the myth. What does the myth actually try to say? And my answer to the next question, it is not a question of hero or heroine. Aparna, I think you raised the question. Don't look at the word hero uh, in gender terms, in terms of gender. It is not a question of hero or heroine. Hero in the common sense, that is the central character. And Jocasta is a very, very functional character. And Jocasta is important because she is, whether we want it or not, willy-nilly, she is the connector between two generations. And by giving birth to Eteocles, Polynicus, Antigone, and Ismene, Jocasta becomes both their mother and their grandmother. So she's an important connector, but it is not a question of becoming tragic heroine or hero. By tragic hero, what Aristotle meant, what is the proper meaning of Oedipus, soul and foot, or man of agony? What could he write? No, soul and foot. Paus is foot, wherefrom we have the word ped, biped, triped, etc. Solen foot. Oedipus had solen foot because in his childhood, his feet and hands were pinned together, and he was meant to be thrown down from the mounts of Kithaeron into the Kithaeron jungles. So solen foot. সেই ক্ষতটা তার সারা জীবনে সারেনি, and he had a swollen foot, and he had a bit of walking problem. He limped a little bit. He had a limping walk, right? So swollen foot, Oedipus. So the earlier question that I was starting with, it is, discussing, it is not a question of hero or heroine. No, she doesn't want to know Oedipus's origin. That is not the question. The question is, Oedipus himself didn't know his origin, and Jocasta didn't know the origin of this grown-up, lovable, young, powerful, wise man who now becomes the king. Oedipus যেমন জানতো না, grown up Oedipus কেউ তো আর জোকাসটা চিনতে পারেনি। এই সবটাই চেনা না চেনার ব্যাপার। It is a question of recognition. It is a question of identification. It is a question of seeing into things, which we call vision. And that's why blindness motif is so important in this play. We happen to see many things, but most of our seeing is not seeing. It is only looking at things. বোঝা গেল? Okay, I think I've taken a lot of time. Instead of 1 hour, I've taken 1.5. Uh, so thank you very much, my students. And thank you very much, Shonjib and Orpita and Ridoy. I don't know Ridoy. I haven't seen him, I think. Uh, and our teacher in charge.
Yes, you have seen me uh, seminar
I've,
at Nistarini College.
oh, I've seen you, na? Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
So
thank you,
thank you,
Ridoy.
sir.
Thank you, Shonjib. Thank you, Orpita.
Many
Thank
many
you,
thanks.
teacher in charge,
And
Devashish Das, everybody.
uh, now, sir, for the last thing of this session, I would request our SCT teacher Hridoy Roy to send the vote of thanks.
Good evening to one and all gathered here. On this wonderful evening, I would like to present the vote of thanks. We take this golden opportunity to thank the respected chief guest and speaker of this event, Dr. Chhandam Deb, Associate Professor, Jagannath Kishore College, Purulia, for his illuminating speech. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I extend my gratitude to the respected principal of our college, Dr. Devasis Das, not only for spending his time with us this evening, but also for encouraging us for this event. Thank you, sir. It is my pleasure to thank Professor Sanjeev Kumar Kaur, Honorable Head of the Department of English, Ramananda Centenary College, for the initiative and smooth guidance. Thank you, sir. I extend thanks to Professor Orpita Ghosh, Assistant Professor, Ramananda Centenary College, for her enthusiastically arranging the event. Thank you, ma'am. I also extend my thanks to internal quality assurance cell of our college for their wholehearted support. Thanks to them. Last but not the least, I thank my students for actively participating. Without you, this event would not be a success. Thank you all once again. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.